Hi, family. I just wanted to start out by saying hello, and I miss all of you. I have been struggling with how to contribute to the YouTube video extravaganza. I wanted to do something that was productive and helpful, and I know I've been getting a lot of questions from Dad and from my nieces and nephews and people in the family about nutrition, meal prepping, and fitness. So I thought the best way I can contribute is maybe to include some information about nutrition, information about my kind of experience with fitness and nutrition over the last few years, and provide a video about meal prepping and how I meal prep, and maybe do some body weight videos that would be helpful that you can do at home. So I guess I want to start out by first kind of going into why I started my fitness experience over the last few years, and it's specifically nutrition. A few years ago, I decided I needed to make a drastic change for my mental health, and also was getting to a point where I just felt really uncomfortable in my own body. My clothes weren't fitting. I just felt icky and frumpy and just wasn't happy with my overall physical health. I was struggling with fitness. I couldn't run anymore. I've been athletic and stayed active and hiked and things like that all my life, but as I've gotten older, it's gotten harder and harder to control my weight, and more difficult to build strength and stay healthy and active. So I wanted to do something drastic, and I definitely wanted to do something that pushed me completely and totally, entirely out of my comfort zone. I wanted to do something that was going to increase my chances of success. And I found by doing things out of my comfort zone and doing things that I feel I can't accomplish, makes me grow. So I joined a gym, not just any gym. I joined a personal training gym. It was a one-on-one personal training kind of environment. And this specific gym trains a lot of bikini competitors. So I have a lot of preconceived notions about fit women, specifically going into this, that they may be selfish or conceited or have more time than I do, or have more money than I do, or somehow I wasn't going to enjoy being there, or I was going to be judged. So I went into it with a lot of preconceived notions. I had no intentions, like zero, zippo, zilch intentions of competing in any kind of fitness competition or competing in any kind of way whatsoever. So I went into it thinking, okay, I need to lose some weight, maybe feel better about myself physically, and that's what I started the whole situation for. What I learned was a lot about nutrition, and finding out that most, if not 90% of my health, my weight, my fat content in my body has more to do with nutrition than fitness. Fitness is like a very small portion of what goes into being healthy and being a fit person. Most of it is nutrition. So that was kind of eye-opening, and I want to share that with you. I'm also going to share here in a minute some before and after photos. I ended up competing in a transformation competition. I had no intentions of doing that. I'm very self-conscious and always have been of wearing bikinis or a little amount of clothing. I never really have worn heels in my life. I've never been on stage in any kind of capacity. I am very uncomfortable with my body even when I'm slim. So doing that was a huge undertaking. It pushed me well outside of any norms that I have ever allowed myself, to even think about. It was a great experience. It didn't come easy. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of tears. It wasn't the reason I went into getting into shape. The reasons I went into getting into shape were very different. And I wanted to, like I said, keep myself from limiting myself by what my mind tells me I can and can't do. And so I agreed that I would compete in a transformation fitness transformation program. And it was a smart decision for me. So when you see the pictures, just keep in mind the competition part of things. You're cutting a lot of weight, and it's not necessarily realistic that you're going to stay in that competition phase of things. It's just not realistic. You drink a lot of water. The 2 weeks leading up to the competition, you're doing a lot of cutting calories beyond what you normally would be, things like that. All the stuff that I learned before it and after it were extremely helpful in maintaining your body weight, health, and overall fitness and well-being. So I'm going to show you some pictures of the before and afters of the competition, what I looked like when I went into first working out, and what I came out with when I finished the competition. So as you can see in the pictures, I lost a lot of body fat. I'm not going to call it so much weight. Weight is definitely a part of it. You will lose weight, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose. But I've learned that when you build muscle and lose fat, and you're losing body fat, that sometimes your weight doesn't change much. And so I really got stuck in my head on the whole weight number, when really my body was transforming and changing, and smoothing out and getting better at agility and so many other things that are so important. And so I just don't want anybody to transfixate on the whole weight things, because there's going to be times that your weight doesn't change at all or very little, especially if you're lifting weights and building muscle. So fat loss should be the goal, is getting rid of your excess body fat. So the next, like I said, few series, I really want to start with nutrition, because that's going to be 90% of any health and wellness and fitness, anything, is the nutrition portion of things. And that's really where I want to focus, especially for you, Dad. I know we've talked about it briefly here and there. This will give you a video that you can rewind, pause, take notes, whatever. Call me, ask me questions. But I really wanted to focus on the nutrition part of things. So I've written down some notes. So first we'll start talking about calories. Everybody kind of knows the basics of nutrition, and I think we kind of all know a little bit about nutrition and parts of nutrition here and there. So I'm going to kind of just go over the basics of nutrition. Obviously, there's tons of information on the internet. It can be very overwhelming, very conflicting, but the basics are really going to be key and kind of a common thread throughout any nutrition program or weight loss or fat loss program. So we'll start with calories. So calories in food provide energy in the form of heat for our bodies to use so that our bodies function. In order to lose weight, you have to eat fewer calories than your body burns. So in order to figure out, okay, well, how many calories should I be eating? How many calories should I not be eating? There's something called your basic metabolic rate, your BMR, or your resting basic metabolic rate. This is how many calories your body burns doing absolutely nothing. Nothing at all, no movement. This is the amount of calories that your body burns by keeping your blood flowing, your heart beating, your brain working, your organs functioning. So in order to figure out what your BMR is, your basic metabolic rate, you can go online on the internet. There's a lot of free BMR calculators. It'll take your height, your weight, and your sex into count, not whether or not you're having sex, but whether or not you're male or female. Anyway, it's going to take all that into account and give you your basic metabolic rate. Some of the calculators might also ask you your activity level. If it does, I always put mine as sedentary because you want to know how many calories am I burning doing absolutely nothing. So my BMR is 1,500 calories. So that's a starting point for me to know that I should not eat less than 1,500 calories a day because that's what my body needs to function if I do nothing. So that's kind of a starting point. You don't want to eat less than that typically. I mean, you can a little bit here and there, but you don't want that to be a standard because you need those calories for your body to function normally and for your metabolism to work properly. You don't want a slow, sluggish, crappy metabolism, and your body will store fat if you're not eating enough. So it's important. This number also will change as you lose weight and lose body fat. So your basic metabolic rate, if you're a lot heavier, will start up higher, and as you lose weight, will come down a little bit. So you want to continue to recalculate it probably every 10, 20 pounds or so. Just kind of throw that back in your BMR calculator online and see what it's saying your basic metabolic rate is, because you want to keep your calories. Unfortunately, the more weight we lose, the less we can eat to lose weight. So that's also something to take into consideration. Courtney, I know like Courtney's trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, which is kind of hard and difficult to measure. But you want to constantly be re-looking at your basic metabolic rate. Can you lose weight if you eat nothing but junk? And the answer to that question is yes. You can eat junk food and still lose weight if you are eating less calories than you're burning. You can lose weight eating anything. You could lose weight eating cheese all day, eggs all day. You see diets that the egg diet or all kinds of weird diets that they come out with, like the, drinking smoothies all day. That's fine. And you will lose weight. But that's not practical for everyday life. So you want to make sure that you're doing this in a way that is going to feed and nourish your body and keep you healthy and keep everything running the way it's supposed to and the way we were designed. So keeping that in mind, not all calories are created equally. So you have empty calories, which are calories that have no nutritional value. If you eat an Oreo, your body is getting nothing from that except for calories. Those are empty calories. Nutritionally dense calories are calories that you're consuming that are also helping your body get nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and all the things that your body and cells and brain and heart and everything need to function properly. So keep that in mind. When I think of food now, I think of it as I'm either putting something in my body that's doing my body damage, or I'm putting something in my body that's going to help me. It's going to help my health. It's going to help my fitness, my well-being, my overall nutrition. Then food becomes more about life and health and not just about pleasure. And one thing I know for sure is we're very social people. Has become very social for us. And the pleasure part of food has become more of our main focus than the nutritional part of food, which is really what it's for. So shifting your mindset about food, it can still be for pleasure. You can still enjoy things. I myself do one cheat meal either a week or every other week, depending on how I'm doing. You have to enjoy food too, and you can enjoy healthy food. So don't think that, oh, I'm going to have to eat healthy and it's going to be gross, because there's so many ways to cook healthy food that are enjoyable, and you'll find even more enjoyable once you start getting the health benefits of eating that way. So nutrient dense food maintains life, promotes quality of how we live, and how every part of our body functions. So Dad, we've talked about macronutrients. So you need macronutrients for your body to work. And the 3 macronutrients that you're going to need, everybody needs for our bodies to work properly, are protein, carbohydrates, and fat. These are the 3 things that your body needs and uses every day. When you don't get enough of those 3 macronutrients because you're eating other things that don't have macronutrients, it puts your body out of balance, and your body doesn't function well, and it causes disease. You need macronutrients that include vitamins and minerals, and water. Those are the things our bodies have to have. They're the building blocks to energy. Repairing our bodies, our immune systems depend on these 3 macronutrients, and it also regulates our hormones and our chemical processes. So it affects mental health, it affects everything. I can speak 100% to this, that my mental health and my overall well-being and my immune system and everything is so much better, so much stronger. My skin is clearer. It's unbelievable what feeding yourself the way we were designed to be fed really does. The great thing is, if everything that we need here on for our bodies is found in food that grows on earth. It's found in animals. It's found it's all here. Everything we need is here, and it's the most powerful medicine that we have is what we eat. So keep that in mind. So the first macronutrient, let's talk about protein. What is protein? Where do we get it from? So you can get protein from meat, eggs, nuts, dairy, seeds, legumes, all of these things, including some vegetables, things like that, all can have protein. What does protein do for our bodies? It fights infection, helps our cells divide, builds muscle, keeps us fuller longer, takes more energy to break down in our digestive system and longer to digest. And it also increases our metabolism when we eat protein, because our metabolism increases because it takes more heat, more energy to burn calories that come from protein. Protein should make up at least 30% of your diet. So 30% of your daily calorie intake needs to come from protein. Why do we want to eat lean protein instead of fatty protein? So a fatty protein would be like a big, meaty, red meat steak with a lot of marbling, a lot of fat in it. The reason you don't want to do that is because fat has more calories. So for instance, if you were going to eat bacon, bacon has protein. Or you could eat egg whites. So if you're going to eat 2 ounces of bacon, that would be 10.6 grams of protein. Your calories, however, would be 304 calories. So 10.6 grams of protein and 304 calories for just 2 ounces of bacon. Or you could eat egg whites. 2 ounces of egg whites would be 6.2 grams of protein, and your calories would be 29. So you're talking the difference of 304 calories versus 29 calories. So you can eat a lot more egg whites, get a lot more protein, and it's a lot leaner, and you're not getting the saturated fat of the fat that's in the meat. So that's something that you want to think about too, is when you're eating, you want to keep the protein that you're eating lean protein. For fats, you need fats in your system. That's a micronutrient. So a macronutrient of fat helps energy, cell growth, protects organs, keeps your body warm, helps absorb nutrients, and produces hormones. Good fats. Good fats are found in vegetables, avocado, nuts, nut butter. Things like peanut butter, almond butter are all good. Seeds, fish, olive oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, all of those things are healthy fats that you can eat. The bad fats, the worst is trans fat. Trans fat comes from industrial made fats, from oils like frying food. These fats have no health benefits at all. They do nothing but damage you. Trans fats are found in cookies, pastries, vegetable oils, the oil that they cook French fries in, margarine, shortening. When you think about what margarine and shortening and all these oils show up in, they're all pretty much processed foods. The next fat that isn't as bad as trans fat is saturated fat. It's not as bad, but it's still not good. And you want to keep your diet 10% or less of saturated fat. So saturated fat's going to be in your red meat, dairy and cheese, whole milk. Things that are made with saturated fat are things like prepared baked goods. And what does saturated fat do to you? Well, it drives up your cholesterol and it blocks your arteries and it makes your body not work as well. Giving up dairy was very difficult for me. That was probably harder than sugar. We'll get to sugar in a second. But there are alternatives to milk that are wonderful. Oat milk is fantastic. Almond milk. There's many dairy-free options. And I do still occasionally enjoy cheese on pizza or whatever on my cheat meals, things like that. But I definitely keep it under 10% of my daily caloric intake because it's just not good for us. So if you want to get rid of saturated fat, get rid of trans fat out of your diet, and you want to avoid saturated fat as much as possible unless it's like a cheat meal. Now we'll get to carbohydrates. So we've got our protein, our fats, and now let's get to carbohydrates. And if you remember when we were kids, the food pyramid that was made by the government, the bottom portion was the largest portion, and it was carbohydrates. Bread, pasta, all of those things were the biggest portion of our food pyramid. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates fuel the central nervous system. They give us energy. They are good for working muscles. Keep that in mind, working muscles, meaning you're using your muscles. Carbohydrates get burned, and our muscles use carbohydrates when they're working. Brain function, carbohydrates are important for our brain function. But keep in mind, carbohydrates break down into glucose. So what is glucose? Glucose is sugar. So if you eat too many carbohydrates, sugar, it converts into excess fat if you eat too much carbohydrates. So back to the food pyramid, if you think about that food pyramid, if the majority of our diet is made of carbohydrates, we're probably going to end up storing fat. And I'll explain to you why in just a moment. So there's complex carbohydrates and there's simple carbohydrates. The simple carbohydrates are not good for you. That's going to be added sugar, brown sugar, corn syrup, glucose, fructose, sucrose. You're going to find it in juice. soda, cookies, cereal, and basically every processed food you find is going to have sugar and added sugar, including dairy. There's a lot of sugar and added sugar in dairy. There's a lot of added sugar in fat-free or non-fat or low-fat products. So be aware of that too. The fat is actually better for you than the sugar. So they took the fat out and they increased the sugar because taking the fat out makes things taste like doo-doo. So they took the fat out, added the sugar in, and actually that's doing us more damage than if they'd have just left the fat in there. So that your low fat products a lot of times aren't good for you at all. Or I'm sorry, your low fat products aren't good for you because they add sugar. Anyway, complex carbohydrates are what you should be eating. Vegetables, beans, whole grains, sweet potatoes. Your higher starch foods, so these are going to create more sugar being released into your system, are oats, cereal, peas, rice, corn, whole grain bread, things like that. Complex carbohydrates are the key to helping your health, and they can guard against type 2 diabetes, but you want to keep them in moderation. For many of us, sugar is a huge deal. And for me, it was big. And one of the things I learned through this process is we do not process or metabolize more than 25 grams of sugar a day as a female. So the first thing that I had to do was get rid of sugar in my diet. And that's like I said, carbohydrates create sugar. So carbohydrates, sugar from fruit even, basically all sugar came out of my diet. The first 3 months were very hard. And after that, my body adjusted, and I will say that I have very few sugar cravings. When I do, I eat very little of it. But as far as my regular everyday diet, I stick to 20 grams or less of sugar a day, which is about 6 teaspoons of sugar total, if you want to put it in measurement, like that kind of a measurement, which is basically a cup of berries. So strawberries, blueberries, blackberries are all very low on the sugar index. So keep that in mind. 25 grams or less a day. Anything that we eat over that in sugar, carbohydrate content is going to turn into fat in our bodies. If we can't use the sugar that we eat for energy, it turns it into fat. For men, it's 37.5 grams of sugar a day. Anything over that will turn into fat. That's 9 teaspoons of sugar per day. That's what all you should be eating. And that includes all of your food, your carbohydrates, everything. You're going to be shocked how sugar is in almost everything you're eating. Sugar from all sources, like I said, carbs, fruit, added sugar. It's causing so much of the problems with our health, our weight, and everything. I'll give you just kind of the rundown on what it's causing. Causing obesity, heart disease, diabetes, immune system dysfunction, chromium dysfunction. It accelerates aging, tooth decay, causes cognition issues and brain development problems in children, causes stress. It takes place of other nutrients that our body desperately needs, because if we're eating sugar and carbohydrates all day, we're not getting the nutrients we need from the other 3 macronutrients that we discussed. And it causes widespread inflammation in our bodies. I was shocked that fruit wasn't all that great for you. I mean, if you're going to eat fruit, it's definitely a better option than any other sugar options that you can have. And your body does need sugar. So I eat it before noon. And like I said, I try to stick to that 20 to 25 grams. I do still occasionally indulge. That's normal and that's life, and you need balance. But you should definitely try to take sugar out of your life as much as you can. Also, I wanted to talk about an app called MyFitnessPal. So all of this can be overwhelming because you have to measure, you have to read labels, you have to do all of this. The MyFitnessPal app is free and it keeps track of all that for you. So you enter your calorie information. Like I said, you're going to find out what your BMR is, and then you're going to find out how many calories you need to eat per day to lose fat. You'll enter that into MyFitnessPal. It'll also give you the option to put in your macronutrients. So how much protein, how much fat, and how many carbohydrates. And it'll give you a percentage. And remember, we discussed you want your protein to be the highest. You want your carbohydrates and your fat to be fairly. I try to do, if I'm going to do higher carbs, I do lower fats. If I'm going to do higher fats, I do lower carbs. But to stick within that 20 grams of sugar a day, I typically keep my fats higher than I keep my carbohydrates. I do pretty low carb diet. Sometimes I even carb cycle. So I'll go 2 or 3 days without carbs. And then on the third day, I'll eat my carbs. So I'll eat oatmeal in the morning and rice with lunch. And then I finish my carbs before noon, just so it gives my body a chance to burn them off, so that I'm not storing that excess sugar in my body as fat. So MyFitnessPal is fantastic. I can teach you how to use it. Maybe I'll post a video about how to do that. It's a great way to keep track. It even has a barcode scanner. So any food that you're eating, you just scan it. You can adjust how many portions you're eating of whatever food it is, and it'll tell you exactly how many calories you consumed and how it's fitting into your macronutrients for the day. It'll even give you warnings saying, hey, you haven't had enough protein, you ate too much sugar. And then you're like, okay, so for my next meal, I know I need to not have any sugar for that meal, or have any carbohydrates in that meal, or have any protein in that meal. So hopefully this helped. I think the next episode that I post will be about meal prepping and how to make all this great food, and how to make it easy, how to make it taste great, and how to package it so that it's easy to grab. Obviously, life is fast, it's hectic, and it can seem overwhelming that, oh man, I'm going to go from, having all my food cooked for me to cooking it myself. Restaurants all have great options too, and even some fast food restaurants. Once you learn how you need your macronutrients to look and how you need to control your calories, you can start making that fit into your daily routine. So our brains get addicted to sugar, just like cocaine, just like any other addiction. And it is beatable, and it will change your life for the better. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them, and I love you all, and I hope this helps. Love you.